I met Jonathan at a small town party, and it felt like destiny. He was charming, articulate, and spoke with such ease that I found myself drawn to him almost instantly. It wasn't long before we became inseparable. Our love story unfolded quickly. I had never felt so secure, so understood, as I did with him. I came from a family that owned a considerable amount of land, passed down through generations, and while it wasn't something I flaunted, I knew that it gave me a certain degree of security in life. Jonathan never seemed to care about that. He said he loved me for who I was, not for what I owned. When we got married, I truly believed that our union was based on love and respect. We lived on a portion of the family land, a beautiful sprawling piece of property with a modest house that felt just right for the two of us. The rest of the land, I left in my name. It was my family's legacy, and Jonathan respected that at least, so I thought. The first few years were blissful. Jonathan would surprise me with little things, like breakfast in bed, or a weekend getaway. We had plans, dreams of expanding the house, maybe even starting a family. I had never felt more content. But as time went on, small things started to shift. Jonathan became distant, more withdrawn, and sometimes, I would catch him staring at me, a strange intensity in his eyes that I couldn't quite place. I would ask him what was wrong, but he would always brush it off, saying he was just tired from work or stressed about finances. I tried to believe him, but the knot in my stomach wouldn't go away. Then, things began to escalate. Jonathan became more irritable, snapping at me over small things, things that had never bothered him before. He'd get upset if I questioned his late nights, his frequent absences. I tried to understand, thinking it was just a rough patch, something all marriages went through. But then I started finding things. First, it was a bottle of pills hidden in his nightstand. I had no idea what they were for, and when I asked, he told me it was nothing, just something for headaches. But why hide it? Then, there were the phone calls. He'd step outside to take them, lowering his voice, pacing back and forth. When I asked who he was talking to, he'd say it was work, but the secrecy didn't sit right with me. I tried to put it out of my mind, convincing myself that I was overreacting. I loved Jonathan, and I wanted to believe that he loved me too. But deep down, something felt off, like the ground beneath me was slowly crumbling, and I was too afraid to look down. It wasn't until one night, when I overheard him talking on the phone, that everything changed. He thought I was asleep, but I had woken up to get a glass of water. As I passed by the door to his office, I heard him say something that sent a chill down my spine. "She doesn't suspect a thing. Once it's done, the land will be ours." I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. What was he talking about? My land? Why would he be talking about my land like that? I pressed my ear closer to the door, trying to make sense of what I was hearing. He was talking to someone, a man I didn't recognize, discussing plans, details about how everything would be handled once I was out of the picture. Out of the picture. The words echoed in my mind, sharp and cold. It hit me then, like a punch to the gut. Jonathan wanted to get rid of me. He wanted my land, the land that had been in my family for generations. And he was planning to kill me to take it. I backed away from the door, my breath coming in short, panicked gasps. I didn't know what to do. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of it all. I wanted to confront him, to scream at him, to demand answers, but I knew I couldn't. If he knew that I had overheard him, if he realized that I was onto him, there was no telling what he would do. I went back to bed, lying awake for hours, my mind spinning with fear and disbelief. How had it come to this? How had the man I loved, the man I had built a life with, become someone capable of such betrayal? The next few days were a blur. I tried to act normal, pretending that everything was fine, that I hadn't just overheard my husband plotting my murder. I watched him carefully, noting every move, every word, trying to figure out what his next step would be. He was calm, almost too calm, as if he knew something I didn't. I started to make plans of my own. I couldn't stay in the house with him, not now that I knew what he was capable of. But I also couldn't just leave without raising suspicion. I had to be smart, careful. I started hiding things: a cash, my car keys, important documents, all in places where Jonathan wouldn't think to look. Every time he left the house, I felt a small surge of relief, but it was always short-lived. I knew he would come back, and I knew that as long as I stayed, I was in danger. I considered going to the police, but what could I tell them? I had no proof, just a few overheard words. Would they even believe me? Then, one night, Jonathan came home late, smelling of alcohol. He was in a foul mood, more agitated than I had ever seen him. He started yelling at me, accusing me of being distant, of not trusting him. I tried to calm him down, but it only made things worse. He grabbed my arm, his grip tight, his eyes wild. "You think you're so clever, don't you?" he hissed. "You think I don't know what you're up to?" I tried to pull away, but his grip tightened. Panic surged through me, and for the first time, I truly feared for my life. He was stronger than me, and in that moment, I realized just how vulnerable I was. "I don't know what you're talking about," I whispered, my voice trembling. He laughed. A cold, hollow sound. "Oh, you don't play dumb, Sarah. I know you've been snooping around. I know you've been hiding things." I felt my blood run cold. He knew. Somehow, he knew that I had overheard him, that I was trying to protect myself. And now, there was no going back. I had to act fast. "I just wanted to make sure we were okay," I said, my voice shaky, trying to sound calm. "I've been worried about you, Jonathan. You've been acting so strange lately." He stared at me for a long moment, his grip still tight on my arm. Then, slowly, he let go. He ran a hand through his hair, looking frustrated, almost defeated. "I don't want to fight," he muttered, turning away from me. "I just need some time. We'll talk in the morning." I watched as he walked away, disappearing into the bedroom. My heart was pounding, my mind racing. I knew I couldn't stay here any longer. Not after that. That night, I left. I grabbed the few things I had hidden away: a cash, my car keys, a few clothes, and slipped out the back door. I drove for hours, not knowing where I was going, just needing to get as far away from Jonathan as possible. I ended up at a motel on the outskirts of town, exhausted and terrified. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Jonathan's face, heard his voice, cold and calculating. I knew he wouldn't stop. He would come after me, and I had to be ready. Over the next few days, I contacted a lawyer, explaining everything. I told them about the land, about Jonathan's behavior, about the phone call I had overheard. They believed me, thank God, and we started putting together a plan. I transferred ownership of the land into a trust, making it impossible for Jonathan to take it, no matter what he tried. But that wasn't enough. I knew I couldn't hide forever. Eventually, Jonathan would find me, and when he did, I had to be ready. I had to be strong. Weeks passed, and I stayed in hiding, waiting, watching. I changed my phone number, cut off contact with anyone who might lead him to me. But I knew it was only a matter of time before he found me. And then, one night, he did. I was in the motel room, sitting by the window, when I saw his car pull up outside. My heart stopped. He had found me,